world is not ending. Okay, shut up. I feel like there's this general pessimism towards the future, this really narrow-mindedness that society is progressively getting worse and we're all fucked and things were so much better in the past. But I think that narrow-mindedness can lead you to become a cranky old man. Or like me in 8th grade, I stood up in front of the class and I gave a speech on why modern music sucked. I was very proven wrong. So this is why things were not necessarily better in the past. Things have kind of been the same in communication and technology, politics, and pop culture and music. So first, communication and technology. While I was researching, I had the opportunity to ask one of my class discussion boards the question, how do you think society is digressing? And every answer was a little bit different, but there was one common theme. Modern technology is isolating us, people don't live in the moment like they used to, and communication is getting worse over time. In the Journal of Education, one critic describes it well. Our modern family gathering, silent around the fire, each individual has their head buried in their phone. Oh wait, that's actually from 1907. And instead of phone, he said magazine. So wait a sec, people have been complaining about modern technology since back then? Yup. Even further, actually. In the year 1871, one critic wrote something in the Sunday magazine about telegraphing that you could say about texting today. We fire off a multitude of rapid and short notes instead of sitting down to have a good talk over a real sheet of paper. My question to you guys is, if people have always been complaining about modern technology, are we any different? Is social media really making our communication worse? Or is good communication just relative to our point in time? So maybe communication wasn't necessarily better in the past. But what about politics? Back then, we had men with morals, pioneers. Nowadays, we just have losers who can only do anything but call each other fucking names. This CNN reporter calls it the nastiest election of all time. So one day in class, I asked my high school religion teacher, when do you think the American political system got corrupt? And he responded, in the 60s and 70s, things were really good. But around the mid-70s, early 80s, things started to get really ugly. So I thought to myself, that's strange. His perception of when things got really ugly 100% coincides with his ability to vote. Did things really get worse in the 70s and 80s, or have things always just been bad and he wasn't paying attention? Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present to you the election of 1800, John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson. These are two founding fathers, two men with lots of honor and respect, right? Well, during the campaign, Thomas Jefferson wrote in a newspaper that John Adams was a, quote, hideous hermaphroditical character, which is a term used by scientists to refer to, like snails, with neither the force and firmness of a man, nor the gentleness and sensibility of a woman, end quote. Politicians have been name-calling since the literal founding of our country. On the other hand, John Adams wrote that if the Republicans and Thomas Jefferson won, quote, there is scarcely a possibility that we will escape a civil war. Murder, robbery, rape, adultery, and incest will be openly taught and practiced, but Thomas Jefferson did win, and there was no civil war, and none of that happened. Politicians have been exaggerating that the world is going to end if the other party wins since forever. My teacher was dead wrong. Politics has just always been bad. So both communication and technology and politics weren't necessarily better in the past. But what about pop culture? Music. It's clear to see music was just better in the past. Nowadays, just corporate BS made for the masses. Here, my favorite YouTuber, Vsauce, provides a convincing example. But you can easily cherry pick examples to argue anything. Okay, sure, you say, but nowadays, music just sounds all the same. It's just the same structure over and over again. And to this, another one of my favorite YouTubers, Sideways, puts forward a good point.
As much as things change, things stay the same over the years. Like, I get that you think that there's a lot of very similar kind of music, but have you ever sat down and looked up how many piano sonatas there are? Like, we just sat down and tried to be like, hey, all of these piano pieces have the exact same structure. That's so strange. Music back then must have sucked.
Basically, music just always sounds the same. That's just natural for any genre at any point in time. Overall, music from the past feels like it's better because it's not a simple one-to-one comparison. It isn't fair to compare the top 40 of 2024 with the best of 90s playlist on Spotify, songs from an entire decade. Statistically, it's more likely that the second is going to have better songs because it's just a larger time frame. Actually, if you look at the top 40 movies from any of these years individually, you'll only recognize one or two songs. Here from 1996, I know Gangsta's Paradise and Breakfast at Tiffany's, but I know Mariah Carey's name, but I don't really know the song, and the rest of the songs I have never even heard of. Here in 1967, I know That's Life by Frank Sinatra, Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, and I'm a Believer, obviously. But, I mean, Snoopy versus the Red Baron, like, what even is that? I have never heard of that in my life. So my point is that there's always been forgettable pop songs. They just get filtered by the test of time, so you don't hear about them. Music of today doesn't necessarily suck. We just have to give it some time to grow. We have to be patient for the masterpieces of our time. And now that you understand this principle, it applies to every other medium of pop culture. Movies, fashion, television, TV shows. No, wait, that's the same thing. Video games. Isn't that great news? It's not getting worse. It's hopeful, really. Since communication and technology aren't necessarily getting worse, since the world isn't ending, despite what politicians say, and since pop culture isn't necessarily getting worse, I get to be excited for the future. Instead of becoming unlikable, cranky old men, we can be optimistic. How will society grow? Change? What cool new things are going to come about? Maybe the next Symphony No. 9 will be released in a couple of years. Maybe it was already released today. Who knows? Thanks for watching.